to be like, hey, find out God's calling on your life. And I was like, I want to know God's calling on my life.
There's no religion in the world that talks about changing somebody's heart. Only Jesus did, and only Jesus can.
Down.
We are not going to show compassion to you.
Let's go. You know you like it.
Parents that are sending their kids to do these fun-sounding retreats have no idea what is actually going on in those woods back there.
Basically, if you're not feeding your body and making it your slave, you're not a good Christian.
By that time, my body, I believe, had begun to shut down, and I wouldn't have survived if I had stayed.
Whoever speaks up most gets to shape the culture.
I feel like a bullfighter. Like I'm out there with the red thing, and my goal is to jerk that out so when they come, they run right into Jesus.
Heard about Teen Mania when I was in high school, and I think I was even in junior high when I first started to hear about their youth conferences. As a teenager, I was really intrigued by the Acquire the Fires and by the battle cries. I just found the congregation of people to be really intense and really powerful. There was always lots of lighting and lots of sound and lots of music, and so it was very, looking back, it was almost trance-like. It was very kind of out-of-body experience. And that was framed in a way that it was spiritual. It was a religious experience.
The Honor Academy is a year-long program here at the Ministry of Teen Mania Ministries, and it's designed for young people to take a year of their life, usually between high school and college, and press into knowing Jesus better and deeper, building on a foundation that they've already got, but growing deep in their Christian faith, and learning some personal discipline.
Good evening and welcome to ESOL. I commend you for your courage tonight to present yourselves on this field. I would remind you, as you experience emotional, mental, or physical pain, the pain is simply weakness leaving your body. We are not going to feel sorry for you. Please do not feel sorry for yourself. You won't last long if you start feeling sorry for yourself.
This was the first time that she had seen me in a couple months, and she just realized that there was something really wrong.
Down.
By that time, my body, I believe, had begun to shut down, and she decided to take me to the doctor. And the doctor that I saw actually spent just a huge amount of time with me, and she just asked me if I wanted to go back, and I said, I don't want to go back. I wouldn't have survived if I had stayed.
We know that people do their best learning not in a classroom, but actually get out of the classroom and go experience real life. We want them to have non-traditional learning experiences. They have a lot of traditional learning experiences as well in lecture, but we want them to also get out and learn some things about themselves that are not normally things you would experience.
I'm not very good with being yelled at. When I get yelled at, I tend to shake and really quiver, and I fear if I do that, just say it lower, they will make me do push-ups or make me work harder.
Guys, to pay attention, and you are a loser!
This generation has lost some of the fight that previous generations had to have even to make this nation what it is. And so events like ESOL help to kind of reinstill some of that, you know, you can give more than what you think you can, especially if you're relying on the strength of the Lord.
Is it the standard to be afraid?
No, sir.
Are you the standard?
Sir, yes.
Well, I guess it is the standard to be afraid. The standard needs some help here. You gonna help the standard?
Yeah, let's go right here. No. Maybe you can grab it.
Once you get in, you can take them off you, but you need to get in first. You need to ring the bell?
Sir, no,
Don't touch my friend. You need to ring the bell.
Sir, no, sir.
We need you in that hole now.
Yes.
Head first. Once you get in there, you can take them off, but don't hurt them.
When I got back from Texas, I couldn't leave the house, and I couldn't wash dishes. And I remember looking down into the sink of silverware and just thinking, I can't do this. For such a long time, it was just make it through the day. And I just had this panic rising within me because I was trying to remember who I was before Teen Mania, and I just couldn't. I think that was a defining point for me where I realized that a lot of things have changed.
Anxiety has a way of generalizing and spreading when it's out of control, so that the person doesn't know what might set them off anytime, and so they begin avoiding everything. So you don't know quite what to expect when you go to Texas?
I'm interested in other people's experience.
Is there anything about it that particularly makes you nervous?
Yeah, a lot of things. It's the idea that they manipulated me the first time around and kind of were able to surpass my ability to think and reason that scares me the most.
My thoughts about going back to Texas are that she would almost feel compelled at some point to do it in order to prove to herself that she could master it. I think it's normal that she would have some doubts and reservations.
Let me hear your battle cry tonight!
It was like a drug. I was hooked.
You doing okay?
So far, so good.
All right, cool.
I left Teen Mania 12 years ago, and the first 6 or 7 years coming out of Teen Mania, there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of confusion, a lot of condemnation, and I started to get into therapy after a couple of years, and I started to work through the issues and really dig and go through the recovery process. And then the last 5 years or so, I hadn't really thought about Teen Mania all that much. You know, I was living my life, working, I got married, and then a friend of a friend invited me to go to a cult seminar. It was about how cults work, and I thought, that's interesting, I'll go listen. And I was really surprised to hear that what they were describing in the seminar was what I had experienced, and the recovery process and the symptoms of coming out of a cult life were all the things that I had gone through, and that was a real light bulb moment for me.
Learning to live in the real world again, that's so hard.
It is hard.
And you keep, or at least I did, I kept trying to make everyone conform to my way of living, like what I thought Christianity was. And when they didn't, I was just like, well, they're backslidden, or they're lazy, or they're not even really saved. I'm the only one that's really saved around here.
I got saved at an Acquire the Fire when I was 18. I didn't really know what God was. I was just going to church as more of a social thing at the time, and I didn't really care about my relationship with the Lord. But once I experienced, it was like a drug. I was hooked. It was amazing. It definitely was life-changing.
Let me hear your battle cry tonight! Whoever speaks up most gets to shape the culture. I'm looking at a whole army of young people who want to speak up!
The Acquire the Fire event is it's 27 hours. It starts Friday. It's all day Saturday, Saturday night. It's a weekend event where you kind of get detoxed from all the messaging that's crammed down your throat with all the media that most kids are watching and submerged in, and extract them away from that long enough and give them a chance to hear the message of the Bible in a way that's culturally relevant to them.
Say it out loud. Say, Lord Jesus, tonight I turn away from the world, the garbage that has destroyed me. I turn away from sin, and I come to you.
This year we had
almost 13,000 people together in an arena just worshiping the Lord. And it's like a sound like I've never heard, where you just walk in and you see thousands of teenagers, you know, that are really caught up in different things, just saying no to those things and really turning to the Lord. And so it just was an awesome experience for me.
It was just a really life-changing experience because I've never really heard God's voice intensely. I was just sitting down, I was just having fun with the, you know, the group and stuff, and I just really heard God speak to me and said, I want you to go here. Like, okay.
What if you were the generation that by using your voice...
There's also a lot of data out that shows that the younger people are, when they hear the message, the more likely they are to respond. You know, and so I thought, well, I want to get to people when they're most likely. Before, you know, we humans, we think we're smart after we get 20 or 21, 25, and we're like, we don't want to change our minds even if all the logic is right there.
So, I have a question for you tonight. Do you have a voice?
If I've done everything I've known to do with a pure heart to communicate the message of Christ, then it's really awesome to go, wow, look at, they're really responding to give their heart to the Lord.
Once I became an intern and I saw sort of the behind the scenes, it became very fake, because it was all planned, and it was all very much staged, and it lost this sense of honesty and this genuine feeling that I had felt as a participant.
Honestly, I feel like a bullfighter. Like I'm out there with the red thing, and my goal is to jerk that out so when they come, they run right into Jesus. And because Jesus changed my life when I was 16, and I prayed 1,000 times, Lord, whatever you did to me when I was 16, the thing that you did inside this broken, messed up kid, just do it to them. If you could just change them the way you changed me, their life would be 1,000,000% better.
Educating people is the first step on the road to recovery. Learning how this happened, you know, how they did it, that's the first part of it. You know, how old were you when you first heard about Teen Mania?
The first Acquire the Fire I went to, I was 18, and I actually got saved.
That's really pretty much the classic age for recruitment into groups like this, because, you know, it's right at that, on the cusp of I'm about to go out on my own.
How did you become involved in it? How did you hear about it?
Acquire the Fire, I went with my youth group from the time I was a sophomore through senior year. So I was used to it, looked forward to it every year, would wear my wristband for like months afterward.
I went to my first ATF when I was 13. I didn't think anything of it again until I went to an ATF my senior year. And then that's when I heard about the Honor Academy in a more personal light. And so it was pitched to be like, hey, find out God's calling on your life. And I was like, I want to know God's calling on my life.
The first time I went, they had just started the School of Worship, and I played guitar and I sang, and I was like, oh, that's perfect. And so there were it was a combination of a lot of things. Everything, honestly, everything looked appealing about it.
Right. I went to my first Acquire the Fire when I was 15. I was in the 9th grade. I just wanted to do something with my life, for it to have meaning. And the Honor Academy seemed like that fit the bill. You know, I was going to go work at this Christian ministry. I was going to be learning about God. I was going to be doing all these things that counted, you know, for eternity. Yeah, that's what I went there, and of course, it didn't end up being anything like what I was expecting.
He talked me into it and made me feel guilty.
Do 4-3, why you crying?
Scared, sir.
What are you scared of? Are you the standard?
It's pretty small.
You want a ring?
Sir, no, sir.
You want to use the wimp out card? As of now, you're wimping out. Go ahead and climb back up. You wimped out.
ESOL, which stands for the Emotionally Stretching Opportunity of a Lifetime, is an LTE in the Honor Academy, a life-transforming event.
For me, the beginning of the end was ESOL. Everything about ESOL was just really bad. I guess I was able to take the abuse myself, but to see other people having to take it as well, I just couldn't deal with that. And then that was kind of the epitome of all the emotional abuse coming to the surface as well. That just really opened my eyes to what was happening.
I remember we got to sleep on the pavement for like an hour, and they would wake you up and make you go jump in the lake, or wake you up and make you go get in a pool filled with ice cold water.
Everyone was really cold and we were all wet and stuff, and so we were shivering to the point where our teeth were chattering. And it was like the introduction where Dave Haas would get up, and it was the first time we had seen him during ESOL and everything, and I remember he said, "Stop shivering, you sound disgusting." And it's like, it's dark and it's just a scary environment.
Okay, you're gonna have to eat some of that.
Hey, we're gonna keep them moving through the first stations now, so as soon as your team is done and your station
Don't you dare spit it up! You will have just as much more! Don't bother spit it up, you'll have to eat even more! Swallowing it is much easier.
I want you to eat one handful of that and I'll give you this. 3 seconds.
Let's go. You know you like it.
Yeah.
Come on now. Let's go, let's go. We're not having like social interaction here.
You could say fear factor meets Navy SEALs training. Fear factor in that they don't really know how it's all going to unfold or what the next exercise is and that kind of thing. Meets Navy SEALs training, where it is really intense. You can ring out, but you're just like Navy SEALs training, you're required to give more than what you think you can give. It's creating a surreal environment where you can discover things in you that you didn't know were there, like, wow, I'm a quitter, I shouldn't be, or wow, I can give more than I thought, with the hope of you are helping them to discover that they can reach deeper and trust in the Lord more than what they thought, even though they might feel like giving up. So you take a surreal environment like that and hopefully get an eternal change in their life.
I didn't want to do ESOL, and then he talked me into it and made me feel guilty and made me feel like crap. And I told him my knee, like, I really don't, he's like, no, God will carry you through, you need to do ESOL. And I'm like, I don't think I can. And they basically forced me into doing it by making me feel really bad. And then when I wasn't ESOL, like, there was many points before I rung out that I was just like hysterical and crying. And like the leaders, they weren't being encouraging. They were like, so you want to ring out and you're gonna leave your company out here? You're like, is that what you're gonna do when things get hard with your relationship with the Lord? You're just gonna ring out of it? Like, they were very emotionally abusive, and that was when I just was like, I have to ring out and I have to get out of here.
With us, I know we had to go to work the next day if we rung out at a certain time. There was no rest or recovery unless you finished ESOL. So it was almost like you were doubly punished for quitting.
And then when they get a commitment, one of the churches say, hey, we're coming, they get to ring the gong, and everybody cheers for them, you know, and so that might mean 15 or 20 kids are coming from that youth group that will have a chance to, you know, have their life changed. And so you see this picture up here with 36,000 people. About 15 of these guys put all those guys in those seats. So if you're an 18-year-old and you walk in and you go, God, just use me to help get these 60,000 people here, or whatever, you know, wow, you know, and then all the ministry that happens. So we're giving, it's really is Teen Mania. It's teenagers being used to, whether it's change the world on, you know, in mission trips, or change their generation here in America.
There's A shift and B shift for the ministry placements, and A shift is like 9 in the morning till, you know, dinner time. And then B shift is after lunch till like 10 o'clock at night.
Dave has pulled all of the graduate interns together to have a meeting because there weren't enough calls being made in global expeditions to get teens out on the missions field. So we're moving all the manpower to GE.
That's like that in all the call centers,
Yeah.
the Acquire the Fire, the Honor Academy call center, and the GE call center. That's all they care about. And they'll tell you if you're not meeting your goals, you're not praying enough, you know, you're not being spiritual enough, you know, you're not working at this hard enough because you're not reaching this goal.
My year was September 11th. So we had a huge mass exodus of kids that, you know, were in global expeditions. They were going to go on mission trips that summer and just completely backed out. And like they did this whole, oh, we're in a war, this is wartime.
What?
Which means we were working overtime. So we were given new schedules, completely new schedules. We were working 10-hour shifts instead of 8-hour shifts. And we didn't have to fill out our accountability cards anymore.
You guys didn't have class either, did you?
Yeah, we didn't have class. We didn't have to fill out the accountability cards because we weren't accountable for going to church or reading our Bible or any of that work. Yeah, it was just...
Wow.
Let me see if I can understand something. You paid to be there each month, plus you worked. Did you get paid for working?
No. No.
And you would work 10 hours a day, but...
Yeah, and you had to volunteer to work those extra hours. But of course everyone did it because required. You were, you were required to volunteer.
Yeah.
And you were, I think, when we first started out, we were required to make 90 calls a night.
It's like a business. I mean, it sounds like a business.
Yeah.
But really, the truth is, a business treats its employees better. You know, I mean, you don't, you know, require all that overtime and oppress people like that.
It was even like getting up to go to the bathroom. Like you didn't have enough time.
I had to ask to go to the bathroom. Ask if I could go to the bathroom like I was a kid in school.
So this is your opportunity to do something different with your summer.
When we were working, we wouldn't have like air conditioning on very high. It would probably be maybe like 85 in the building. It would be very hot. There would be 100 people on the second floor in a small, in a workplace, but a small workplace. It was I felt like it was overcrowded, and that was a normal day. But for a tour, the air conditioning would be on, all the cubicles would be cleaned, fans would go away. When we had campus visits, I felt like we just would lie.
Not everything in this culture is going to be good for me. It's like candy with poison in it. It really looks good, but it's going to kill you.
I have learned a lot of things with my walk with the Lord. Like I've learned not to be fear of man, just getting rid of like different stumbling blocks in my life, just getting rid of a lot of things that are in my past and just being able to grow closer to Him.
Honestly, the only person that I can think of emulating is Jesus Christ. There aren't, you know, I think that there's skills that we can pull from people, skills that we see are like, okay, I want to grow in that area. But in my perspective, I feel like those people are just following hard after Jesus, quite honestly.
There are many things in our culture that are not Christian, don't represent Jesus or the teachings of the Bible or so forth. And if we're going to call ourselves followers of Christ, be known as those who, you know, are identified with Him, then we need to be able to go, you know what? Not everything in this culture is going to be good for me. And it's like candy with poison in it. It really looks good, but it's going to kill you.
Robert Lifton wrote really the basic book about thought reform. In that book, he described what he called, you know, the 8 conditions of the thought reform environment. And we're going to look and we're going to see if Team Mania fit those conditions at all. If it did, then you've been through a process of thought reform. So, you know, you can call it a cult, you can call it not a cult, I don't care what you call it. You've been through thought reform. You've had that done to you.
Geographical distance is a huge one. I mean, it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's not even really by any significant city. The closest one is 20-30 minutes away. There's nothing right around the campus.
Right.
So right there, you're isolated.
Communication.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
I didn't talk to my sister for the whole, she thought I didn't want to talk to her. And part of it was just I didn't have the time. You had the 15-minute rule, and the only phone that you could use or that I had access to was in the middle of the hallway in the dorm. So I couldn't openly speak to my parents and tell them how I was feeling or what was going on.
You step out of your own reality, especially the Western mindset of reality, and really just experience the realities of the rest of the world. You know what I mean? Just taking away simple things like commodities, American electronics and whatever, and getting that out of the way and seeing what really does matter.
They actively promote the idea that Ron and Dave are this magically anointed, Dave would tell this story as soon as the interns arrived, this elaborate story where he almost died in Africa, and this woman prophesied to him that he was going to miraculously recover, and then his job was to sweep the idols out of the lives of young people. God has sent him here to do this, so whatever he says is automatically credible, and, and the same thing with Ron, there's kind of this, mystical thing around them that you just automatically believe whatever they say.
I never asked people to become Christians. I asked them to consider becoming followers of Christ. People who would want to be known as Christians, we ought to be people that are following Christ with all of our heart. And when that happens, we ask him to forgive us, and he comes and lives inside us, a miracle happens. You can't describe it with words. It's not just about going to church. It's not just about, saying a chant. It starts with an encounter where you invite him to take over your life, and he forgives you. And the Bible calls it being born again. You get a new heart. You can't even explain it. It's just, you can try, but it's a miracle.
I feel like they were trying to teach you to be perfect,
Right.
Have that perfectionism.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with accountability, because I think we all need that in our lives, but they take it to an extreme.
Ron Lewis actually tells the interns that you should always be fasting something.
Yeah.
Whether it's,
wow.
Because that will help you keep your flesh in check. So whether it's, you fast food for a while, then you fast movies, then you fast talking or fast whatever, you should always be fasting something.
Well, fasting out to Yasmin, we set apart 3 days just to fast from food and really pursue what the Lord is doing in our lives, and just kind of spend that time doing what he's calling us, and hearing sessions from speakers that come to us, and then at the end we all get together and we break fast together and just kind of talk about what the Lord did in our lives over that time.
You do have to have an accountability partner, it's a requirement, and so you're supposed to practice confession with them.
They would say to us, even if you have the thought of doing something, you need to tell somebody right away. Go and tell somebody.
Right.
Even just the thought. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. Just because it's a thought doesn't mean I'm going to act upon it.
And if you are real, if you do show a genuine concern, it's immediately shot down with oh, well, this is the answer to that, instead of oh, well, okay, well, let's approach this, genuinely. Just oh, well.
So they have little stock answers for everything.
Yeah.
I was willing to believe anything they said, because they were obviously more spiritual than I was. What did I know about God's voice? That's half the reason I went to the Honor Academy, to learn how to hear God's voice,
Anybody else, that's pretty strong right there.
Dave Hawes gives this, definition of honor is the total conglomeration of characters. So he basically says the whole Bible and Jesus is summed up in honor.
Okay.
It's the Honor Academy. We have the Honor Council and the Honor Code and the Honor Ring, and it's this whole. You can't even question, well, really is what it's all about honor?
Yeah.
What about, I don't know, love? So here we are in Texas, in the rain, in camouflage ponchos, carrying a cross down the side.
Didn't they have the thing, though, where they made you guys walk on the freeway?
Yeah, crosswalk. I did that twice. Basically what happened was they would wake you up really early in the morning, blindfold you, put you on a bus. You're not allowed to talk. Of course, you can't see anything. And after several hours, they would drop different people off at different locations in groups of 6 or 7 or 8. And We got dropped off, our first year we got dropped off in Oklahoma, and the rules are you can't have a watch, you can't have money, you cannot ask any questions, and you can only take a ride for 20 miles at a time. And you had like 2 days to get back to campus, just on prayer.
That's so stupid. What was the point?
Just you had to carry a big cross the whole time too. Or my first year, our second day, we went to this church, and it was raining. Of course, we had to walk, so they gave us these ponchos. They gave us camouflage ponchos. So here we are in Texas, in the rain, in camouflage ponchos, carrying a cross down the side of the road, okay? If that doesn't look like a cult, I don't know what does.
Unreached People Group is where we basically get separated into two groups. We're missionaries and then tribal people. And so the tribal people, we have a big campus out in the back of 400 acres. And so the tribal people all go out there, and as the missionaries, we get the opportunity to kind of role play and try and reach them with the gospel. So it's so much fun, even though we know them.
They had this refugee camp up in the woods that we were supposed to go to, and if we didn't make it there in time, then facilitators came after us, and they were able to drag us to the jail, which was the ladies' shower house. Mm-hmm. And these are like tiny ass showers, you know, and you had to sleep on the floor. You didn't have blankets, of course, because it was jail.
It's not sanitary.
How long were you there?
I was in jail like 12-ish hours, I think, because I went to jail at like 4 in the morning, something like that.
But you were in that shower stall jail for 12 hours?
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry that happened to you. I mean,
that's horrible.
Yeah,
horrible.
That's really abusive.
Is.
At the time, I thought it was great.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm. Because I was like, I'm spending time with Jesus. And I just thought it was really hardcore sounding to be like, I spent my birthday in jail.
Yeah.
What strikes me is when y'all tell this, you kind of laugh, and it seems real lighthearted.
You sort of smile, yeah, you know, instead of...
Well, no big deal. And I'm sitting here horrified.
Parents that are sending their kids to do these fun-sounding retreats have no idea what is actually going on in those woods back there.
Yeah.
This is abusive behavior.
Oh, yeah, extremely.
You know, and no parent, no, you know, normal, healthy parent would ever want their child to go through that.
Did any of y'all tell your parents this story?
I just started talking to my parents about the internship after reading Micah's blog.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people have told me that they don't want to tell their parents what happened because they don't want their parents to feel guilty for sending them there or for not, you know, so they just don't, they don't want their parents to know what they went through because it's too heart-wrenching. You know, I mean, I think that's why I write the blog too, because there's a lot of Stephanies out there and a lot of Hollies and a lot of Micahs, and, you know, none of us deserve to be treated that way.
I understand some people have felt really hurt. Their negative experience may be because they so desperately don't want a in-your-face challenge that they're going to say, well, that's negative. Why would you ask me to do that, kind of a thing. And so that's why I say Honor Academy is not for everybody.
Beating your body, according to Teen Mania, would be to ignore any discomfort from like exercise or like...
Basically, if you're not beating your body and making it your slave, you're not a good Christian.
All of that stops you from critically thinking about what are really my needs, what are my desires, what does God really want for me in this situation.
Well, the thing is, Dave House would always like, you have to think critically. Think critically, and he was always stressed. So it was very confusing and conflicting.
It's like be a critical thinker, but don't question anything.
Right.
Exactly.
We're trying to train young people to think critically, and some of the ways that we do that, for example, anytime I teach, I tell the young people, don't just listen to what I say and think that it's true. You need to think about what I'm saying. You need to see, is it in the Bible, what I'm saying? Does it prove true in life experience, what I'm saying? Don't just walk out here and go, well, Dave Haas said this, so I think that's true.
Basically, I felt like they didn't want us to have emotions. They just wanted us to be these happy people all the time, and they didn't care what was really going on inside of us.
I think Teen Mania does this, and a lot of Christians kind of do this, but especially Teen Mania. They associate whatever is like a normal human emotion or interaction or development as worldly. So then you have to abstain from it. So, and they just categorize everything, even like normal, healthy development, basically robbing you of your humanity.
We just hold a very high moral standard here. It's all biblical. Just living a life of excellence and discipline. All just under it's all out of an overflow of the love of God. So yeah, I mean, it's just really. You see interns that come in, just different things that they're struggling with. So we adequately deal with these cases with just a counseling program, mentorship program. We'll put them on a growth plan, different things like that, just different issues that they're struggling with. So.
You're really not allowed to have an opinion that's not held by, the majority group.
Because what would happen if you did have your own opinion? Yeah. If you voiced your own opinion?
The most minor thing that would happen is you might be just judged by your peers or looked down upon. But if it got all the way back up to leadership, if it was a serious enough disagreement,
Well, the fix-all solution was to just tell them to leave.
Yeah, so we can stop the questions.
Exactly.
Let's engage in critical thinking and look at the issues and decide for ourselves. And you can't have any of that.
No.
Well, there was no sense of who I was. I had completely lost everything that was my identity before. So I mean,
what do you think?
Well, I had no needs or wants or desires or goals outside of what Teen Mania told me that I had. And I guess maybe a good way to put it would just be soul murder. I know that might be really extreme, but I think that that's a good way of defining it. When I think about who I was in high school and before Teen Mania, it's almost like I'm in mourning, and that's been a huge part of my own sort of recovery process, is this idea of grieving for who I was, because so much of who I was, I feel, was taken away from me, or in some cases suffocated to the point where I just didn't think that part of who I am was ever going to come back.
We're not doing things that are going to cause people to have problems after ESOL.
That was 10 years of my life, all of my 20s.
After people have been through a thought reform process, sometimes they'll have outbreaks of crying, of anxiety, panic even, for no apparent reason, depression, even suicidal thoughts.
10 years ago, I would have checked almost all these.
Yeah.
All my college years, this is a description of my college years.
Oh, this whole thing?
Yeah, the whole page. Avoiding things, being incredibly irritable, having intense feelings, being numb, finding it hard to trust people, feeling detached, losing interest, always on guard, always. Yeah, absolutely.
I just had a lot of avoiding symptoms, really. Like, I can't stomach a worship service anymore just because of the HA, and it's not like anything bad happened in worship necessarily, it reminds me of that, and I just can't stomach it.
And just looking at the checklist and thinking, yeah, I do have some of these symptoms, which I just never thought about. I think it's that whole avoiding the thoughts, like even a thought of Teen Mania. Yeah, so, and I think I'm just now realizing that that's what it was.
The purpose of ESOL is to create an environment that's safe, yet pushes people physically beyond where they've ever gone before, and emotionally pushes them. What I mean by that, we're not doing things that are like going to cause people to have problems after ESOL.
But in terms of the process of thought reform, it looks like, Lifton's criteria, all 8 of them were active and are active at Teen Mania.
That's great. It pisses me off that that it happened. I fall for it all.
Is that your fault?
No.
No, it's not.
I really think that the only thing that we're all guilty of is wanting to be good people, wanting to be good Christians, and wanting to help other people.
Right.
Yeah. That's what we're guilty of.
Yeah.
They
That's
took that and they used it against us, you know? And there's no reason for us to feel bad about that.
Exactly.
You know, we were just kids.
It's just hard, like...
This is a lot to swallow, isn't it?
Yeah.
Realize what they did. But it wasn't your fault.
No, the Honor Academy is not for everyone. And if you don't want that challenge, you know, probably not a good place for you to come. We want to help you rise up to become the leaders of your generation. And in order to be a leader, you've got to know how to deal with challenges and very intense situations.
It's taken me a decade to get to that point where I'm opening up and I'm having friends. Because even 2 years ago, I didn't have a social life. I didn't socialize. That was just something I wasn't comfortable doing yet.
Wow.
You felt so alone and you felt like nobody else really had that experience you were dealing with.
Yeah.
That experience has changed you forever, and beginning to accept that and being okay with it and being okay with who you are now, that's another way that you'll be dealing with the loss.
It wasn't until just a few months ago that I realized that I'm allowed to enjoy my life.
Yeah.
And I'm not angry about what happened to me for those 2 years that I was at Teen Mania, but I'm angry about the last, you know, the 10 years following that, that I didn't think I could enjoy my life. And all of the crushing guilt and condemnation that I lived with. You know, that was 10 years of my life, you know, all of my 20s.
Yeah. Everybody's way of getting through this experience and healing, everybody's recovery is going to be different. And there's no cookie cutter way to do it.
Yeah, I don't even want to go home.
Yeah.
Because, like, this has been so helpful, and I feel like when I go back home, I'm just going to be, like, stuck. Or, like, I'm going to backpedal, you know?
I think the reality is that's part of the isolation that you feel coming out of, I mean, I was so lonely my first year out of the Honor Academy. So lonely, because nobody could relate to what I was going through. And it's hard. It's not easy. I think the weekend went really well. Gave me ideas of things that I still need to be aware of in my life in terms of recovery. And I think it was just encouraging to see the girls being able to talk freely about things that they maybe hadn't been able to share with other people before. So that was really good. And I think we had a really good camaraderie together, and I think that's always really healing when you can be around people that are supportive and that affirm you and what the experience that you had was.
This weekend was really good because it was like a safe environment, and I could really talk about my experience at the Honor Academy, and I didn't feel awkward or uncomfortable or like people were judging me or not understanding. And I think that's the kind of environment I need to be in order to really recover.
Tonight when we were at dinner, we were talking about putting your story up on the blog and what that meant to you, and I even when that happened, which was a couple months ago, it for me it wasn't really a question of if it happened or not. It was more a question of is someone going to validate my experience, and am I going to gain more confidence sharing my story?